This podcast has been made possible by Ledge.
Hi, this is Justin Judd, CFO of Bamboo HR, and you are listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 922.
I think that there is some credit that goes to the finance organization in the way we have been able to enhance the profitability and results of the company. I mean, doubling EBITDA is not an accident. It has been a strong partnering between the business leaders and the finance leaders coming together to prioritize, allocate resources. Capital allocation is a big deal for us. We are a very capital intensive company, and if you don't make the right investment decisions, things can go very badly wrong. So if you invest wrongly, it can derail you completely because these are big investments, and if they don't turn out to be right, it has consequences. But not investing has consequences because you don't grow. So finding that right balance of where do I prioritize and put my capital, I think that I have played a role in that. Both organically, we have done a big acquisition, inorganically as well. So, that has been something that, I have influenced, and my team has influenced together with all the business leaders in the team.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Dev Ahuja, CFO of Novelis. Among the learnings Dev Ahuja has gleaned from a 3-decade globe-hopping finance career, no lesson perhaps has provided more enduring instruction than that which followed his very first hop. By his own account, Ahuja had reached the summit of Novartis' finance executive ranks in India when the drug giant invited him to occupy an office at Novartis' Switzerland headquarters. Here, Ahuja was promised he'd be able to apply his flourishing financial acumen at a more global scale. However, not all went as planned for Ahuja, who tells us after logging his first year in Switzerland, he would receive some strongly worded feedback, which stopped him in his tracks and forced him to rethink the path forward. Dev Ahuja tells us how his path forward changed, and much more on today's episode. Does your finance team struggle with routine tasks like reconciliation and manually managing multiple bank accounts? Many tech companies today have complex finance operations and massive amounts of data in different disconnected silos. Whether you're reconciling across 6 different payment processors or between NetSuite and the bank, closing the books can be a nightmare.
Hello,
Ledge has found a better way.
With Dev
Ledge is a
Ahuja,
finance operations
CFO
platform that
Novelis.
connects all
Dev,
your
welcome.
banking, payment, and accounting systems
Thank you,
into
Jack.
one unified
Good
platform.
to have you with us, Dev.
Ledge automates
We always
revenue
begin by
reconciliation
asking our guests
across
to look back
all
for
systems,
us and
right down
sharing
to the transaction
those
level,
experiences
and
they
instantly
feel
matches payments,
prepared them
invoices,
to become a
refunds,
finance leader.
chargebacks,
When you look
or
back,
any other
comes to
transaction.
mind?
Ledge gives you real-time visibility
So I can
into your
share
cash
those
position
moments which,
across all accounts
were
and
on
alerts
the
you about
side
issues
of
and at-risk
leadership,
funds
and I can
in
share
real time,
moments
so you can
where
act in real
I
time.
got
And
these
get this,
functional
Ledge
revelations.
requires
And
no
let me start with
engineering
more the
resources.
functional side.
Ledge plugs right
With an
into your
incident which
existing
has
stack,
impacted
so
me
you can
from
get
my early
set
days
up
in finance
instantly.
and still
Ledge
continues to
puts
be
finance
an
teams
incident which
back in
I
control.
can never forget.
Learn more at
I was a rookie
ledge.co.
in a group CEO's office working as the chief of staff with my group CFO. And so it was like in the first couple of years of my career, I was like about 5 or 6 years into my career. And it was really something to be working with a group chairman of a very, very sizable business and a very, very mature group CFO, which, I thought he was really one of the best in his fields. And here I was in my early career, completely awed by how they took decisions. But, those were huge learning years. And this was one incident which I always enjoy talking about. So we were in a meeting where an acquisition was being discussed. There were a couple of people around the table, including the group CEO, the group CFO, some of the other senior leadership members, and a very, very well known global consultant. I won't name who it was, but you can imagine there are only that many. And we were delving on the decision on the go, no go. And the entire room was swaying towards, we have to get this deal. We have to do this acquisition. It's really strategic. And everybody was swaying on one side. And after everybody had spoken, my group CFO started talking. And he said, my answer would be, don't do it. Not at this price. And there was silence in the room, a couple of moments of, here is the show spoiler speaking. And he just continued. Everybody was listening very well to him. He continued. He said, I don't disagree with anybody that the deal is very strategic. I think at this valuation, we will never make money. Now, my answer is not a no, no. I think we need to drive more value into the deal. Now, this was a deal where we were taking on a large debt. We were taking over a large debt from the banks as part of the deal because the owner of that business was not able to be going to pay those debts, And so really, he said, I want to work with the banks and see if we can shave off some of the debt and make the deal, therefore, potentially more value accretive. So it was not a no answer. It was a no at this price. Now, it was against the popular opinion. Everybody said, oh, we'll figure it out. We have several levers to drive value into the deal. We will figure it out. But the way he put it across was like, we will do the deal. We should do the deal. Let me do some more work and let's just drive some more value to make sure that we don't stay out of money. Now, I was in that moment where I said, wow, it takes courage to go against what everybody wants to be doing in the room, not be a naysayer, but be somebody who says, my answer is a conditional yes, and I want to help in driving value into the deal. Now, in those formative years, to me, that became my ideal, to say that, hey, it's so easy for a finance guy, for a CFO to say no, and they are good at saying no, but being able to then provide an answer, provide a solution is so important. So that incident just stayed with me about how do I want to be when I grow as a finance leader.
Wow, wonderful story for us. Again, did you participate in that meeting, or are you just quiet at one end of the table? Are you?
I was an observer in the meeting, and I was supposed to be the guy who was doing all the backroom work. So my value in that whole exercise was that I was the guy who was doing the modeling. I was the guy who was helping my group CFO, sort of make the case. And therefore, I had a silent contribution, but nobody was expecting me to speak in that meeting. And I would have shuddered. I mean, I did not have the courage to speak in that meeting. I was completely overawed, I have to say.
Was this the consultant who put forth that answer or no? But you did mention a consultant was in the room. Can you characterize the role they played, and were they sort of championing the deal?
Well, so the consultants did the right job in bringing a right strategic fit. Now, they seem to be overly eager to make the deal happen, to make it work. That is what they were incentivized to do. And so I think that looking back, they did oversell it. They did, kind of help in convincing everybody around the table that there were enough value creation opportunities. And some of them, to me and my group CFO, did seem like a bit far-fetched. So it was that intervention that actually turned the deal into a successful deal, and we made it work, So looking back, the group chairman and CEO actually said that was really bold and you did the right thing. And to me, that stood out as, remember this, and this will come to your help in a future moment when you will be required to show that courage.
So yeah, everybody around the table has a different mindset and different motivations at times. Wonderful story for us. Thank you. I want to point out one of the fascinating things about your background. You were at Novartis for quite a while, and all it reveals on LinkedIn, and I know LinkedIn isn't bulletproof, but it shows us that you were there a little more than 15 years, perhaps. I'm sure you'll share some with us, but what's fascinating is the number of geographies that you were part of, and many of them were CFO geographic assignments. So, but you were in Mumbai, you were in, Switzerland for 5 years, you were in Korea for 3 years, you were in Japan for 2 years, and then towards the end of your tenure, you're in Texas for
Yes.
2 years. How'd I do? And as a summation, what would you add to that?
Well, you summarized it perfectly, almost in the right sequence, and so absolutely. And I think that one of the things about my career is that I took thoughtful risks. Just think about it. What is similar about India and Switzerland in terms of culture? Almost nothing, I would say. Almost nothing. What is similar about Switzerland and Korea? Close to nothing. These cultures cannot be more far apart. And for me, I knew what I was getting into. I was doing it mindfully. I knew that I could be a flat failure. But the ability to really weigh the risks versus what could be the size of the opportunity. For example, I knew that it will be a challenge to build new relationships, to assimilate culturally, to be able to really influence people in a very different environment. I knew those will be challenges, but I knew that the rewards would be equally worth the while. And more than anything else, what if I fail? One failure, it's okay. It will be a learning opportunity. After that, I will learn from it and do the next thing better. So that was the mindset with which I approached some of these challenges. And when I look at where I've ended up, it has all proven to be worth the while. On my first international assignment, when I moved to Switzerland, I learned some very hard lessons because I was coming from a position of strength. I was a high performer in my home market in India. And I thought that, I knew what it takes. I came with a lot of confidence rather than in a mode of humbleness, wanting to learn. So I think that I came with a sense of arrogance, with like, I have it figured out kind of a thing. And in my first year, I did a miserable job because I really did not make the effort to assimilate, to understand people, to build connections, to take the time and effort to understand cultural nuances of working in a very different environment. I got a lot of feedback, and Swiss feedback is very blunt. The Swiss don't mince words. So it was bitter, but at the same time, it was the most helpful year of my career because I never made the same mistake again. When I moved to Korea, I did exactly the opposite, invested time in learning the culture, understanding what works, what does not work, investing in people, building connections with those expats who had lived there for many years and getting to know from them. So the point I'm making here is that one failure on my first move became my key factor for success in future moves. And that's how I thought about every move, including moving industries, because you mentioned about moving geographies, but how do you think about moving from pharmaceuticals to metals, about which I knew nothing at all, right? How big is a risk that one has to take to do that? But I think that when you fail once and you decide that you're going to take every lesson from that failure and implement it in future, it somehow starts to work.
I mentioned before that these are senior CFO unit roles in the different geographies after you leave Switzerland. How many Novartis executives do what you do? I have to believe it's not a large number that reached the different geographies that you had. And
It begs different questions.
was he a good soldier? Was he always willing to go where they wanted to send him?
So, when I look back, even I get fascinated by how all this happened. There are not many executives, even in Novartis, who moved so many countries. Yes, Novartis was very active in developing people across geographies, but my case of moving 5 countries was not a very normal case. Now, I think that in a way, I was fortunate. One, that opportunities came. Second, that I had my mentors, and mentors is an underlying theme in my life. Like my mentor of 25 years ago is still my mentor even today. I mean, there is this gentleman who was the CEO and later the chairman of Novartis in India, one of the wisest leaders, one of the most empathetic leaders. We can talk about him later if we get a chance. But I have my mentors. He's not my only one, but he has been my mentor consistently for like now 25 years. Now, every time there was a possibility, I used my mentors liberally. And I used my family, my wife, to talk through it. Here's the opportunity. Here is what it can do. Here is what can go wrong. So one is I give all credit to Novartis in terms of sort of giving me choices, and I could have said no to any of these. There was really there was no reason for me to kind of to say a compulsive yes. I could have said no, but as the opportunities came, I got a lot of help in making thoughtful decisions and also a lot of family support. So all in all, it was a function of having the right inputs, having the on my side, having the courage to be able to step in and know that I'm taking a risk, but it's a measured risk. So these are all the things that came together. That came together. Now there were some specific moments where the company really thought that this will be the right move. For example, when I was in Korea, uh, Novartis had just done the Alcon acquisition, and Japan was the second largest market. It's next door, like a 2-hour flying distance. And I had spent 3 years in Korea, very successful 3 years, and they thought that it's getting to be time to take the next challenge. And here was Japan offering a new opportunity to integrate Alcon into Novartis. It was a huge acquisition. It was a $46 billion acquisition. Later, Novartis spun it off, and it's now an independent company. But at that time, it was one of the largest acquisitions that was ever done in the industry. And one of the thoughts was that, hey, he's right there in Korea, knows Novartis, has what it takes to be able to do the integration, go after the synergy opportunities. He knows the Novartis system well, can connect on the corporate side. He has worked in Basel, knows whom to connect with and get things together. So I think that, I was like the right guy next door who was sought out. And I thought, absolutely, why not? Here was a very, very highly visible acquisition. When I saw what needed to be done, I thought that was exciting, driving synergies, driving integration, integrating processes, doing things that drive value. I thought it's a great opportunity. And so it was like a meeting of minds and all the stars just lining up at the right moment. And that's how I ended up in Japan. Now, once I did Japan actually was a success story. We were able to accomplish a lot in a short period of time. US, which was double the size of Japan, was wanting somebody to come in and bring in some learnings from that. And my CFO sought me and told me, hey, listen, would you like to move to the US, knowing very well that my son was already studying there? why don't you move over, and maybe your contributions in Japan will help us to get some head start in US. And so that's how some of these things happened. It was just the right opportunity, and the timing just became right.
That's interesting.
You opened by sharing that story of being at the table, and that, in fact, you were in part responsible for doing some of the modeling behind the scenes of the deal. So we know you're not just an accountant at that point, but where did your accounting skills and sort of your FP&A skills sort of mature together? Were you at first an accountant and then FP&A surged as you became more involved? How did it happen?
Yes, I think that there was one thing that became increasingly clear to some of the people around me. In fact, I started becoming self aware much later in life, and the people around me were more aware about me than I was. They helped me discover myself. And there were many moments where people helped me discover myself. So let me tell you the story of how life started and how I got into finance. So my father, who was my first mentor, he was a meticulous investor, a very disciplined investor, one of the most disciplined investors that I can think about even till today. I've seen many good investors. I think I'm a fairly good investor, but my father was by far the most disciplined investor that I know even till today. The way he used to be systematic about making his decisions, the way he was good at record keeping. So he made me his record keeper when I was 15 years old. All right, now I want you to write down all the dividends that we got from this company as soon as the check comes. Like you have to be my bookkeeper. And he was very demanding. And I started doing that. But more importantly, I started enjoying that. So I started doing more than he asked me to do. When a company report used to come, an annual report and financials used to come, I actually started reading, oh, this company says it has grown so much. And then I used to go and tell my dad, you should buy more shares of this company, very naively at that time. But my father started noticing what I was not noticing, that I have a passion for that. And he started nudging me gently in that direction. So what he did is that in one of my vacation times, he asked me to intern with a friend of his who was running a family business, a very close friend of his who was running a family trading business. And he said, hey, can you just let my son shadow you in your office, And he said, oh, yes, come over. I used to be sitting in his room when he was having business discussions. And then he handed over the books of accounts of one of his small business and said, and told me, every month I want you to make a P&L and balance sheet and come and explain to me. For the next 3 months, you're doing that. So you see how I got inducted into the world of finance. So there was a fascination for understanding business, and accounting became a pathway to that. And then later, I think that one of the hallmarks for which I think all my leaders with whom I worked recognized me was that I never stayed shallow. Like I used to go deep into the business, and that was really what ticked for me. I kind of sort of went into the markets, went and met customers, had a passion for understanding deep down, because I think that at the end, a good CFO basically needs to be deep into the business. If not, he cannot pull value levers. And to me, the hallmark of a good CFO is, do you understand where value is? Are you able to influence the organization to pull those value levers? So I'm just telling you that accounting was a platform, but really what was always a passion was that I should be able to talk about the business as fluently as somebody who runs a business.
Nice. A great moment of insight for us. Thank you for that.
We know you have something more to share about mentoring, but if you wouldn't mind, we'll probably get to that a little later. And right now, we'll ask you about this company, Novelis. Interesting company. I have to say, I didn't know too much about it. It's not a small company today. Please tell us about Novelis. What type of company is this? What are its offerings?
So Novelis is a leader when it comes to sustainability. Basically, it is a downstream aluminum company making flat-rolled aluminum products. And in a very, very simple language, flat-rolled aluminum products are thin sheets of aluminum. So converting those big blocks and slabs of aluminum into a sheet that could be used to make aluminum cans, or they could be used to make automotive bodies. For example, the F-150 body, we are a big part. We have a big share in that as a platform. And we make automotive bodies for almost every OEM. We make automotive sheets for almost every OEM that you can think about anywhere in the world, to a small or large measure. And then we are in building and construction. So external facades of buildings. We do so many other products, like you look at truck trailers. The body of a truck trailer is something that comes out of our aluminum. We are into aerospace. So, for example, the wings of aircraft, that comes from a material that we make. So we are in a diverse set of end applications. But the thing that is very, very compelling about us, and one of the key reasons why I thought it's a great space to be in, is it's a sustainability leader. 61% of the inputs that we use are recycled, which means that we are doing good to the planet. We are really recycling aluminum, and and uh, and that is what really makes us the company of the future. One of the things that I was attracted to was, I was in the pharmaceutical space. I was very proud of what I was doing. I never thought I will leave Novartis until somehow a search company who knew me came to me with this opportunity. And I asked the question, well, what will I be able to contribute in an industry about which I know nothing about? And he said, no, they would like somebody who brings an external perspective, and which I did. I think that uh, you know uh, it has turned out to be fascinating, because this company, even before I joined, was making strides. But in the last 7 years that I've been in the company, it has made such big strides. We have doubled our EBITDA. We have grown our revenues by like 70%. We have done a major acquisition. We have done organic things, to really reformat the portfolio, and it has been a wonderful experience.
Now, I just again, you mentioned your 7-year tenure now, and so it was 2016, and you shared with us you were recruited. Did you visit a plant right away? Was that part of the recruitment? You maybe visited a plant or two just to understand the nature of the business? Yeah.
No, I saw some videos. I did not physically visit a plant before my recruitment, but I did not waste too much time after my recruitment to make my first plant visit, because I was really hungry to do that. Let me go and actually see how things happen. So it was part of my wanting to learn the industry. And, one of the things that I kind of sensed even before I joined was that there were a lot of value levers that I could think about. For example, somebody who's recycling aluminum, who is promoting sustainability, it was emerging as the theme of the future. And I thought that this is a company that can make a big impact going forward. And so, I could already think about value levers. When I came into the company, I brought a pharma background. And think about it. What does pharma do best? Pharma does best when it comes to innovation. Pharma is all about pushing the R&D engine, pushing the future, creating a pipeline for the future. And really, the pharma business is a lot about growing the top line. This was a company which was great when it came to operational excellence. I mean, people really knew what they were doing. They were very good. They were very good when it came to operations. But I think that there was a lot of money left on the table in terms of pricing of the products. That was one lever I thought, I could push, and I did push that. I thought we were pricing our products too low. We were not getting all the value that we should. And that was a great opportunity, a fascinating opportunity, and we made it happen. Today, our pricing levels are far better, far healthier. And I have to say that that was one lever that I could potentially see us pulling and getting value. So all in all, the other thing was, looking at the future pipeline. I mean, coming from the pharma industry, I felt like we were not allocating enough resources onto research and development. And, From then to now, we have doubled our spend on research and development, which was the right thing to do. I think we have a healthy pipeline of things coming for the future. So, what I'm trying to say is that while there is a lot of premium placed on bringing an industry background, there is a huge value in coming like a blank sheet of paper and just rethinking everything from the point of view of somebody who is just learning, bringing a completely different insight. And I think that with all modesty, I think I was able to do that.
We're wondering what are the KPIs that matter in 2023? What are the numbers that the measurements you're looking at regularly to make sure the company's performing the way it should today?
Right. So I think that let's talk about two kinds of KPIs. One is the financial KPIs, and the other is the non-financial KPIs. And the non-financial KPIs drive the financial KPIs. So, for example, we look at quality, parts per million. We look at recovery. How much percentage output do we get for 1 unit of input? Then we look at recycling. What's the percentage of recycled material, and how do we sort of optimize, maximize it? These are some of the value levers which I look at all the time. Safety is imperative. It cannot be directly linked to financial numbers, but if we slip on safety, it has other consequences in terms of team morale, in terms of reputation, in terms of employee goodwill. But I think that a lot of CFOs uh, don't look at value drivers and look at end products. And I really think that financial KPIs are an outcome looking at the underlying drivers, which are some of the KPIs I mentioned, result in those outcomes that we are looking for. So finally, of course, we look at financial KPIs, the EBITDA growth, volume growth, EBITDA growth, free cash flow, and free cash flow conversion. We look at all of these, but you can never get good financial results unless you look at the non-financial KPIs and keep a good tab on them, which I try to do.
When you think back to 2016 and the finance organization that was in place and the finance organization you have today, how is it different? What did you change it in some fundamental way, or did you deploy talent differently?
So we had a very well set structure. I did not need to question the structure. It was like a corporate and a regional structure, which kind of was working then and is working now. But I think that what I brought in was some renewed focus on a couple of areas. So let me talk about two. One is, how does finance show up to the business? Is finance doing more of reporting, spending a lot of time on producing statements, data, numbers, or are they playing a prominent enough role in having a seat at the table, in driving decisions, in pushing value levers? And I think that on the latter, finance has a strong seat on the table today. Finance has become a much bigger thought partner, participating, playing a role in shaping strategy, in shaping outcomes. That is one thing that we have been able to move the needle on. The other thing is focus on people pipeline. And I think that we have really done a lot of good work in enriching the talent pipeline. I personally spend a lot of time in really looking at where are my leaders going to come from 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line? How's my line of succession looking to my direct reports? Are we having enough depth of talent? So as a team, my leadership team and myself, we do spend a lot of time in making sure that we are deepening the organization, creating a bench so that we are able to move people, and we don't have And we don't have situations where somebody who deserves to move to another job or a higher job is not able to do so because there is no succession. So I think that if there are two areas where we have moved the needle, it is this. I spoke about pushing value levers. I think uh, that there is some credit that goes to the finance organization in the way we have been able to enhance the profitability and results of the company. I mean, doubling EBITDA is not an accident. It has been a strong partnering between the business leaders and the finance leaders coming together to prioritize, allocate resources. Capital allocation is a big deal for us. We are a very capital intensive company, and if you don't make the right investment decisions, things can go very badly wrong. So if you invest wrongly, it can derail you completely because these are big investments, and if they don't turn out to be right, it has consequences. But not investing has consequences because you don't grow. So finding that right balance of where do I prioritize and put my capital, I think that I have played a role in that. uh, Both organically, we have done a big acquisition, inorganically as well. So that has been something that I have influenced, and my team has influenced together with all the business leaders in the team.
Can you share with us maybe how capital allocation in pharma and your experience there may have in some way influenced what you have sought to put in place here?
No, absolutely. So in pharma, it's all about resource allocation because you have a whole pipeline of opportunities. Do you go for product X or a therapeutic area X or Y or Z? There is a multitude of choices. You have a choice of doing it in house, you have a choice of buying out, you have a choice of in licensing, you have a choice of creating it in house. I mean, you are faced with umpteen choices. Number one, that's on the pipeline. Number two is on sales and marketing, because there are two things that power the pharma business. One is discovery and development, and the other is promotion of the products. How do you launch a product? What kind of resources do you put behind that? It is an industry where if you're not good at resource allocation, if you're not sharp on really doing a rigorous analysis of choice A versus B versus C, you don't make it. And I think that after working for 15 years in the pharma industry, your gene kind of gets developed in that direction. And so thinking all the time about, this is the pool of dollars that I have, and this is the pool of opportunities that I have. What should I be doing? It's about measuring the size of the opportunity versus the size of the risk. What's the money at risk? You know, if something goes wrong, how much money can I lose? But if it goes right, what can I make? So it is about really thinking from first a strategic direction, and then second, good execution, good capital budgeting, good capex tracking, good project progress tracking, and then after that, holding people accountable on delivering to what was promised. So finance has a big role to play in ensuring discipline on resource allocation, number one, but also number two, discipline on execution. And I think that the finance organization is playing a role together with all their business partners in making all this happen. So, to your original question on how did pharma help me, I think that developing that gene inside your head, on how you think about resource allocation, I think pharma helped me a lot in doing that.
I do want to ask you one question regarding AI and whether we've enjoyed talking to finance leaders recently about whether AI has become part of the strategic discussion. Clearly, there's been a lot written in headlines and what have you. But as a finance leader, how do you contribute to those discussions?
What do you expect the impact on the business to be when it comes to AI and the impact on the finance function? What will that be?
The possibilities are just endless. I can't stop counting on how good the possibilities are when it comes to AI. So in a small way, what we have started is we are developing a cash flow forecasting model using AI. which basically uses all the information that is available from historical cash flow trends to be able to simulate and forecast. So we are piloting that. But beyond that, there are so many opportunities to help make the right decisions using the whole mass of data, to come with more informed decisions. For example, we are large buyers of scrap. Now, I'm kind of really talking with some of our business colleagues that we have this endless mass of data sitting in a data lake. What if we deploy an AI tool to help me optimize my purchasing mix, based upon all the data that I have about a scrap of this grade cost me this much, and this is basically what I get, in terms of the mix benefit in the end product. So in being able to do simulation, which is humanly a huge exercise, could be done by AI to simulate the right product mix, to simulate the right metal mix, for example. Just one of the possibilities, I would say, with AI. But I can really go on talking about how much you can do with AI when it comes to using the big mass of data that is available, that is impossible to humanly even sort of assimilate. AI can do that so much better than humans. So I see a lot of possibilities ahead. I have no concerns. My only concern is the speed at which we can deploy it and execute it. That is really my only concern.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We're up to our finance strategic moment question, where we ask you just to share one moment of insight that you've experienced in your career. What comes to mind for you?
I think one of the turning points goes back to 2009. And I was between moving from Korea to Japan. I was in my last few weeks in Korea, and I was moving to Japan. And at that time, I was invited into a finance mentoring workshop, which was run by a gentleman by the name of Kevin Cashman. Now, Kevin Cashman, if I may just mention a few lines, Kevin Cashman is a leadership coach. He works with Korn Ferry. And in my mind, I've worked with a lot of coaches. In my mind, for me, he's the very best. In fact, to anybody who cares to take my suggestion, I think that his book, Leadership from the Inside Out, is a textbook on leadership that I would suggest to anybody who wants to really shape himself or herself to be a good leader. So, in this mentoring workshop, which was like a 2.5 day mentoring workshop, Kevin and I were talking, and he was giving me some feedback. And he asked me, how do you allocate your time and attention between I, we, and it? I being exercising your personal influence, influencing outcomes personally. We means helping the team become better, investing time in the team, investing time in people. That's the we thing. The it is accomplishing the mission of the company, driving the objectives of the business. So there is I, there is we, there is it. Leaders spend disproportionate time on one of these. There are very few who balance all the three. Some are a lot about I, some are a lot about harmony. It's always about we. Some are, I don't care about I or we. I just want to get the job done. That made me think about, where am I? And I thought I was too much of an it guy, investing too much time in driving results, driving outcomes, too little time on organization, succession, people, spending time with people, getting to know them, investing in them. That was a moment of revelation, which Kevin Cashman helped me see that I was not doing enough of. And I think that the before and after of that was that from 2009 and beyond, the time that I spent on people was far higher. So it was that moment which kind of changed direction for me as a leader. And I wish that that moment had come 10 years before that, because I was leading teams for a very long time. But if I had got that moment earlier, I think it would have been it would have been a lot better in terms of my evolution as a leader, which happened, I think, a bit late.
From episode 864, this is 1 Minute with Stephen Mitchell, CFO of Redgate Software.
For me as a CFO, starting to talk to investors over time, but I want to be able to talk coherently about how we make decisions, how we decide where to deploy capital, where we invest, what the return is from that, and why they should feel confident that we're the right place to put a few £1 million to enable us to accelerate growth. So that FP&A function is a key thing, which I think would already been recognised, but obviously I bring a lot more experience of having been there and done it in other organisations and seen it as, I've worked on the other side in other functions and had a finance business partner and seen what's needed to really make that work.
We're going to jump to what we refer to as our mentoring round. And I would love to have you look back to 2016. Now, you've had a career's worth of experience as you enter Novelis as CFO, but at the same time, publicly traded firm, your first 90 days there, if you could go back in time and perhaps just tell yourself something, what would it be when you think back? I wish I knew this. I wish maybe I had understood this better. I don't know. Anything come to mind?
So I think that I can answer this question in two parts. One, what I thought I did well. The other, what could I have done a little better? I think that in my first 90 days, I did the right thing by investing a lot of time in learning about the business. That was my first objective. That was my very first objective. And that was highly appreciated. The time I was taking and the effort that I was making in quickly getting on board with the business was really the right thing to do. If I were to start again, what would I do differently? I would challenge with more empathy. I think that, coming from the outside, as I was learning about the business, I was brimming with new, different thoughts, and I took the liberty of going all out and challenging, right? And people said, oops, this new guy, he's really coming at us. There were those moments, and now when I look back, I could have done the same thing. I could have done it with more empathy. So that's what I would kind of, sort of do differently if I were to start all over again in Novelis.
Well, thank you for that. Wondering, we always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side with us. We're wondering if there's a personal habit or some part of a daily routine that you have that you're known for, something you've done over time, perhaps. Might be something a family member would point out. But anything come to mind, a personal habit or part of a daily routine, something you're known for, sets you apart in one way?
There is one personal habit which I never, ever fail to do, and that is towards the end of the day, I take some quiet moments with myself and kind of just look at what I did during the day in a detached, objective way, and that helps me to rebalance perspectives, so it brings more objectivity and it helps me sleep better. There are every day there are some things that go well. There are some things that at the end of the day I think I could have done differently or better, and just recognizing, not beating myself up, not really punishing myself as to why did I not do that versus this. I just take the time to just say, yes, this went well. Here, I think I could have done it this way versus that way. It's all right. You need to forgive yourself. You need to sort of still like yourself, and you need to remember that you are human. But those moments of reflection help you become more detached, more objective, and eventually help you become a better person. So that is something that I always do. And as I said, it kind of just brings down the heat waves in your mind and help you become a more composed person.
You already shared one book pick with us, but we always like to ask for a book pick. Would you have another one, or is it? Would you like to just emphasize leadership on the inside?
Yes, Leadership from the Inside Out. But the other book that I think is a fascinating read is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I think that's a must read about Phil Knight's journey on creating the Nike brand and how he did it, like how he took his risks, how he seized opportunities, and how he navigated through the Japanese Chinese systems, to be able to create this iconic brand. So I think that Phil Knight and Shoe Dog is a must read.
It's a popular pick, and I've been trying to figure out what it is that resonates with finance and accounting folks. Of course, he was an accountant, I guess. That might have something to do with it. But, well, thank you for that. And we are up to our final question. Sorry we did run long, but we'd like you to look forward finally. And over the next 12 months, what are your priorities as a CFO?
So right now we are in a moment of making big investments. We are at a moment when we are investing more than $3.5 billion in adding more capacity, making organic investments in not only additional capacity, but also more recycling capacity. Now, this is a lot of money. And my key focus is watching over it to make sure that it's disciplined execution. And also, we will have to make sure that we manage our cash flows in a very disciplined way. Otherwise, our execution could derail. So to me, really, my focus is right now a lot about making sure that we manage cash efficiently, and that will help us execute our plans well, and that is going to be the key to creating growth opportunities for the future. This is number one. Number two, we are going through a turbulent environment when it comes to the economy, and being ahead of the game in terms of watching leading indicators in the market is an imperative. So I'm really trying to sharpen my own ability to look forward. In short, really identifying what could be those leading indicators that tell me which way the business could be heading, and I'm encouraging my team to do that. So these are the two things where we are focusing a lot, which is where my personal focus is. Organization and people will always be a focus. I would never do anything that takes my time and attention away on the organization side. During COVID times, some things fell off, like our mentoring program fell off. It got derailed a bit with everything that was happening during COVID. I want to bring back our mentoring program and really make sure that all our emerging talents have the opportunity to have good mentors to help their development. So I want to sort of repivot and get some of the things that we lost during COVID. I want to bring them back. These are some of the things that will be high priority for me.
Dev Ahuja, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Jack.
Hello, Thought Leader listeners. As you have perhaps already heard or even seen, we're now featuring the career lessons and moments of strategic insight shared by our CFO guests as Thought Leader videos. You can now find these videos on our blog at cfothoughtleader.com and, of course, our newsletters, but also on LinkedIn. If you haven't already, please go ahead and follow our CFO Thought Leader LinkedIn company page, and you'll be certain not to miss a single Thought Leader video debut. CFO Thought Leader, the #1 thought leadership platform exclusively for and by CFOs. As always, thank you for listening.